PGA Tour in shock. Bombshell revelations about Phil Mickelson just dropped, and they are absolutely unbelievable. $1 billion in bets. Nearly betting on a Ryder Cup he was actually playing in, and lefty, hiding all of this from the fans for years. This story is massive, not just about gambling, about integrity, about the integrity of the Ryder Cup, the greatest team event in golf. Phil Mickelson nearly put a $400,000 wager on it while he was on the course competing. Let that sink in. The man Billy Walters called a modern-day Arnold Palmer almost pulled a Pete Rose. The baseball legend banned for life for betting on his own team. Phil was this close to doing the same thing. The audacity. Here's what went down. Billy Walters, one of the most famous gamblers in America, a legend in the betting world, and Phil's partner. They had a 50-50 gambling partnership that lasted 5 years. Walters just dropped a book called Gambler Secrets from a Life at Risk. In it, he spills all the tea on Phil Mickelson, everything, the billion-dollar bets, the $100 million losses, and the Ryder Cup attempt that could have destroyed Lefty's entire legacy. The numbers are absolutely staggering. Walters says Phil wagered more than $1 billion over 3 decades. That's not a typo. Billion with a B. His losses close to $100 million. $100 million gone. Let me break this down. Between 2010 and 2014 alone, Phil made bets that would make your head spin. $110,000 to win $100,000 on 1,115 occasions. $220,000 to win $200,000 on 858 occasions. That alone comes out to more than $311 million in wagers. In 2011, just 1 year, 3,154 bets placed, nearly 9 bets every single day. On June 22nd, 2011, 43 bets on Major League Baseball games. Lost $143,500 in a single day. 43 bets. That's not gambling. That's an obsession. Walters says Phil had offshore accounts with limits of $400,000 on college and NFL games, far more than most gamblers get. You don't get those types of accounts without betting millions of dollars, Walters wrote. The two worked together on a 50-50 split. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. 9 bets a day is not a hobby. 9 bets a day is a job, a second job. While he was supposedly focused on winning majors, while he was on the range at Augusta, while he was signing autographs for kids with that famous thumbs up, somewhere an account was open. Somewhere a game was running. Somewhere money was moving every single day. Now, here's where it gets really juicy. The Ryder Cup attempt. September 2012. Medina Country Club, the Ryder Cup, the biggest team event in golf. Phil Mickelson on the team, playing, competing for his country. And what does he do? Calls Walters from the tournament. So confident the United States will win, he asks Walters to place a $400,000 bet for him on Team USA while he's playing in the event. Can you believe that? Walters was shocked. I could not believe what I was hearing, he told Phil. Have you lost your foxing mind? Don't you remember what happened to Pete Rose, the former Cincinnati Reds manager banned from baseball for life for betting on his own team? Walters reminded Phil of his incredible standing in the sport. You're seen as a modern-day Arnold Palmer. You'd risk all that for this? I want no part of it. Phil backed down, said, all right. But Walters admits he has no idea whether Phil placed the bet somewhere else. Read that last line again. He doesn't know. The one man who could tell you what happened next has no idea what happened next. Phil hung up the phone. And then, nothing. Silence. A gap in the story that nobody has ever filled. Here's the irony. The United States lost that Ryder Cup, one of the biggest collapses in golf history, leading 10-6 going into Sunday singles. Lost 14.5 to 13.5. The miracle at Medina. Phil lost his singles match to Justin Rose. Think about the position that puts him in. Phil goes out a Sunday. He's part of a team leading 10-6, a 4-point cushion, basically unlosable. and he loses his match. Europe storms the building. Think about what's in a man's head standing over a putt when he's supposedly got serious money riding on the outcome. Think about what that does to your hands. Imagine if he had placed that bet. Imagine if word got out. Ruined, banned from golf, legacy destroyed, all because he couldn't control his gambling addiction. The man who won 6 majors almost threw it all away for a bet. Now let's talk about the day it all blew up, August 10th, 2023. The excerpt drops on the Fire Pit Collective. And where is Phil Mickelson at that exact moment? Playing a Pro-Am at Live Golf Bedminster Trump National on the course, walking 18 holes while his phone lights up, and the golf world sets itself on fire behind him. He finishes the round. Reporters are waiting. And Phil, the most quotable man in golf, the guy who never met a microphone he didn't like, says nothing, declines to comment, walks off. Hours later, the statement, "I never bet on the Ryder Cup," he posted on X. While it is well known that I always enjoy a friendly wager on the course, I would never undermine the integrity of the game. But look at what he denied. Look closely. He denied the Ryder Cup. He said nothing about the $1 billion, nothing about the $100 million in losses, nothing about the 3,154 bets in a single year. Fox News caught it immediately. Mickelson wasn't denying the billion. He was only pushing back on the Ryder Cup, the biggest number in the story, and he let it stand. And the golf world? Well, the golf world had jokes. Rory McIlroy was asked about it in a press conference that same day. His response, at least Phil can bet on the Ryder Cup this year because he won't be part of it. That's it. That's the whole answer. No outrage, no defense, a punchline. And that is so much worse than anger. Anger means you still matter. A joke means you're finished. The best player in the world treated the biggest scandal of Phil's life as a one-liner and moved on to the next question. Jordan Spieth got asked the same day at the FedEx St. Jude Championship. He dodged completely, said people seemed surprised by the amount, said he'd only seen what people sent him that morning, said even if he wanted to comment, he didn't think it was a good idea. Read between those lines. The locker room went quiet. Nobody stepped up. Nobody said, "That's not the Phil I know." Nobody. Golf writer Alan Shipnuck had already read the book under an NDA. He tweeted that he couldn't say anything specific yet, but that Walters devotes 2 full chapters to his ex-friend Mickelson. 2 chapters. The golf world knew it was coming. They just had to sit there and wait for it. Phil has admitted his gambling was reckless and embarrassing. Hundreds of hours of therapy addressed the issue. But let's be real. You don't bet $1 billion and lose $100 million without having a serious problem. What about his response to all this? 6 weeks later, Phil posted again. 414 words. And this time he didn't dodge. He opened up. He said he crossed the line of moderation and into addiction and that it wasn't any fun at all. He said the money was never the issue because his financial security was never threatened, but he was so distracted he couldn't be present with the people he loved. He said it caused a lot of harm. He said people had told him, "You're here, but you're not with us." He called the addiction a hurricane, said it caused a lot of damage. And here's the thing, that post is genuinely raw. That's a man telling the truth about something ugly. But notice what it does. Notice what it doesn't do. It never addresses Walters, never addresses the Ryder Cup, never addresses the billion. It's an apology with a hole in the middle of it. Exactly the shape of the question everybody was asking. And then there's the betrayal. Walters even says Phil betrayed him. After Walters was convicted of insider trading and sent to prison, Phil refused to publicly say that Walters never gave him inside information. All Phil had to do was publicly say it. He refused. The outcome cost me my freedom, tens of millions of dollars, and a heartbreak I still struggle with daily. While Walters was in prison, his daughter committed suicide. He believes he could have saved her if he'd been on the outside. Phil could have helped keep him out of prison, but stayed silent. Here's how that actually went down, and it's worse than you think. The court records show it. Accounts controlled by Phil and his wife made 23 separate purchases of Dean Foods stock. Total cost about $2.46 million, all in a single month, July to August 2012. Then, on August 8th, right after the White Wave spinoff was announced, They sold everything. Profit? Nearly $1 million. One witness could have cleared the whole thing up. One man could have walked into that courtroom and settled it. Phil Mickelson and his lawyers informed both the prosecution and the defense that if called by either side, Phil would decline to testify. He took the Fifth Amendment. Against self-incrimination, Walters got 5 years. Phil got a bill. He was never charged with a crime. The SEC named him a relief defendant, meaning they believed he profited from insider trading even if he didn't commit it himself. He paid back over $1 million and walked away. 5 years in a federal prison for one man, a refund for the other. Same table, same bets, same information, totally different outcome. And here's the kicker. In January 2021, Trump commuted Walters' sentence on his last day in office. The White House release listed Phil Mickelson as one of the supporters. Phil's attorney immediately shot it down. Phil had nothing to do with this. No letter, no phone call, nothing. His old friend gets out of prison and Phil's team races to the phones to make sure everyone knows he had nothing to do with it. Now let's talk about Phil's finances. Despite losing $100 million, still worth a fortune. Reports say net worth around $400 million. Earned over $96 million on the PGA Tour. LIV golf deal reportedly worth $200 million. And 2 months before the book dropped, somebody asked him about his gambling addiction on social media. His answer? Haven't gambled in years. Almost a billionaire now, thanks for asking. Almost a billionaire. From golf, from endorsements, from Saudi money. Still lost $100 million gambling. Think about that. One of the richest golfers in history still couldn't stop himself. And he's out here posting victory laps about it. 8 weeks before the receipts landed. This isn't the first time Phil's gambling has made headlines. In 2001, reprimanded by tour officials for gambling in the Players' Lounge at the NEC Invitational. Won $500 from Mike Weir after betting him $20 at 25-1 odds that Jim Furyk would sink a shot from the bunker. In 2016, a relief defendant in Walters' insider trading case had to repay almost $1 million from money made in a stock deal. Not charged, but FBI questioned him. In 2021, the Detroit News linked Phil to an alleged mob bookie, Dandy Don DeSerrano, a man the government considered an associate of La Cosa Nostra. The bookie allegedly couldn't pay Phil $500,000 he was owed. Phil called the article opportunistic and selfish and irresponsible and vowed he'd never play the Rocket Mortgage Classic again. But here's what nobody talks about. His own lawyer told ESPN the reporter didn't say anything that wasn't true. He didn't dispute the story. He disputed the timing. And going back to 2015, a California man named Gregory Silveira pleaded guilty to 3 counts of money laundering. He moved $2.75 million through his bank accounts to an illegal sports betting operation. ESPN's Outside the Lines identified the client as Phil Mickelson. Silveira went to prison for 366 days. Phil, never charged, never investigated, walked. Notice the pattern? It's not the gambling, it's the exit. Every single time somebody else takes the hit, Walters goes to prison, Silveira goes to prison, and Phil writes a check and walks into the sunset with a thumbs up. A decade of bad decisions, a decade of controversy, and a decade of Phil Mickelson trying to hide it all from the fans. Now the hypocrisy. Phil criticized the PGA Tour, called them a monopoly, sued them, took Saudi money, acted like he was fighting for the little guy. All along, this massive gambling problem was destroying his life and reputation. What about the fans, the ones who cheered for him, bought his merchandise, defended him when he went to LIV? They had no idea. Thought he was just a golfer, just a family man, just a legend. Behind the scenes, betting billions and almost gambling away his legacy. This is the guy Walters said was seen as a modern-day Arnold Palmer, the gentleman, the icon, the role model. Arnold Palmer never had a partner write 2 chapters about him, never lost $100 million gambling, never had his name turn up in a money laundering case, and a mob bookie's testimony. Phil Mickelson is a brilliant golfer, 6 majors, 45 PGA Tour wins, Hall of Fame career. but his legacy is tarnished now, forever. Every time someone talks about his career, the gambling comes up. The billion-dollar bets, the Ryder Cup allegation, the money laundering link. Always going to be there. That's the tragedy. A great golfer, a generational talent. Threw it all away for bets, for the thrill, for the action. Couldn't stop himself. But hold on. Before you convict him, let's be fair for 1 second. Who's telling you this story? Billy Walters, a convicted felon, a man who went to federal prison, a man who blames Phil for every day he spent in that cell, a man who lost his daughter while he was locked up and believes Phil could have prevented it, and a man with a book to sell. He's got motive. He's got a grudge. He's got a publisher. CNN said flat out they could not independently verify his claims. And on the Ryder Cup, the biggest charge in the whole book, even Walters admits he doesn't know if Phil ever placed it. There's no ticket, no receipt, no proof. So, who do you believe? A gambler with a grudge and a book deal? Or a man who spent 20 years dodging every consequence that ever came looking for him? That's the thing about this story. There's no clean guy in it. Nobody to root for. Just two gamblers, one table, and one of them still standing. Walters summed it up best. Phil liked to gamble as much as anyone I've ever met. But there's a difference between liking to gamble and what Phil did. He took it to a level that was destructive to his finances, to his relationships, to his reputation, and to his legacy. The only other person I know who surpassed that kind of volume is me, Walters wrote. That's the company Phil kept. The biggest gamblers in America. Not exactly the company you want when you're trying to be the face of a sport. What does this mean for the PGA Tour? Here's the uncomfortable part. All of it was public. The 2001 reprimand, the 2015 money laundering case, the 2016 insider trading case, the 2021 mob bookie story. It was all out there in ESPN, in federal court filings, in the newspapers, and the tour never publicly disciplined him for any of it. Not once. Not a suspension, not a fine that anyone ever heard about, because Phil was a cash cow, a ratings draw, a fan favorite. So the story went quiet every time, and now it's back all at once, and it's not going quiet again. Too late. Damage done. Truth out. No putting it back in the box. This is the story of Phil Mickelson, the gambling legend, the man who almost destroyed his own legacy, the fans who had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. One thing's for sure, Phil Mickelson will never be seen the same way again. The mask is off. The secrets are out. The golf world will never forget. What do you think, golf fans? Is Walters telling the truth, or is he just settling a score? Should Phil face consequences? Is he still a legend? Or is his reputation ruined forever? Drop your thoughts below. This has been Golf Gossip. Stay tuned for more. We're out.